He slid the dessert menu across the table without looking at me and said, loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, "They probably have something light for you. You don't need the real stuff tonight." My brother had just gotten into Harvard Law. This dinner was for him. I understood that. What I didn't understand was why celebrating him required diminishing me. Why the two things had always been linked in my father's mind like they were on opposite ends of the same scale. I picked up the menu. My hands were steady. I had learned steadiness a long time ago, in rooms far less forgiving than this one. My name is on the door of a federal courthouse in the Northern District of Illinois. It has been there for 14 months. Before that, I spent 11 years as an assistant U.S. attorney trying complex financial fraud cases that made the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Before that, I graduated second in my class from Northwestern Law. And before all of that, I was just the girl my father called the practical one, which in our family was a polite way of saying he had given up expecting anything remarkable from me. My brother's name is Theo. He's 26. He's brilliant, genuinely brilliant, the kind of person who reads Kant for pleasure and argues about it afterward. My father has been planning Theo's Harvard acceptance since Theo was approximately 11 years old. When the thick envelope arrived last month, my father cried, real tears at the kitchen table holding the letter with both hands. I know because my mother texted me a photo of it. My father did not cry when I was confirmed as a federal judge. He sent a card. It said in his handwriting, "Proud of you. Call when you can." That was it. I kept the card. I don't know why. The restaurant was called Dovetail, a nice place on the north side of Chicago, white tablecloths, and a wine list that went on for 6 pages. My father had made the reservation himself, which was unusual. He was wearing his good blazer, the charcoal one he saved for church and funerals. My mother sat next to him in a navy dress, twisting the clasp of her purse the way she did when she was trying to hold something in. Theo was beaming. He deserved to beam. I genuinely wanted him to have this night. "So walk me through it," my father said, leaning forward on his elbows. "First-year curriculum. What are we looking at?" Theo started talking about contracts, about constitutional law, about a professor whose casebook was apparently legendary. My father hung on every word with the focused intensity of a man watching the Super Bowl. He nodded. He asked follow-up questions. He refilled Theo's water glass without being asked. I ordered the salmon. I ate it quietly. At some point, my father turned to me the way you turn to check on a parked car. "You still doing that courthouse stuff?" he asked. "Courthouse stuff." I set down my fork. "Yes," I said. "Still doing that." "Good, good." He turned back to Theo. "Now moot court. Are you going to do moot court? Because I read that moot court is where the real networking happens." My mother's eyes found mine across the table. She gave me the look she had been giving me my entire life. The one that meant, "I know. I'm sorry. Just let it go." Her hand moved slightly toward her purse, and I knew without seeing it that she was reaching for the small wooden rosary she kept in the inside pocket. She wasn't Catholic. She'd bought it at a gift shop in Santa Fe 20 years ago because it fit in her hand, and she liked having something to hold on to. I looked out the window at the street. A city bus rolled past. The light changed. Life continued. "She's always been the quiet one," my father said to the waiter, who had made the mistake of asking if we were celebrating something. "Smart enough, sure, but her brother." He gestured toward Theo like he was presenting evidence. "Harvard Law. First in the family. This kid is going to be a senator someday. Mark my words." The waiter smiled politely and retreated. I picked up my fork again. Here is something I have never told anyone. The night I was confirmed as a federal judge, after the ceremony, after the reception where colleagues shook my hand and the chief judge made a toast, I drove myself home. My husband was traveling for work. My father hadn't come. My mother had called from the airport to say she was so sorry. She had the dates wrong. She would make it up to me. I changed out of my robe in the courthouse parking garage, folding it carefully over the passenger seat. I drove to a Walgreens. I bought a pint of Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia and a plastic spoon. I sat in the parking lot and ate the whole thing, and then I called my college roommate in Seattle and left a rambling voicemail about how I wasn't sure I'd actually told anyone, and she called back at midnight, crying and screaming, and I sat on my kitchen floor in my bare feet, laughing and crying at the same time. That was my celebration. It was enough, and it wasn't enough. You carry a thing like that for a long time before you even realize how heavy it is. The dinner continued. The bread basket came. My father ordered a second glass of wine, the expensive Bordeaux he never ordered anywhere. Theo kept talking, animated and warm, the way he always was when he had an audience. He was good at this, at taking up space in a room. I had always wondered if it came naturally to him, or if he had simply been encouraged into it for so long that it had become muscle memory. At one point, he turned to me and said, "You should give me the tour of your courthouse sometime, Audra. I'd actually love to see it." It was the first time anyone at the table had used my name all evening. "Anytime," I said. "Federal court is pretty different from what I'll be doing, right? Like the procedures?" I started to answer. I explained the difference between Article 3 courts and state courts, the appointment process, the tenure. I was 3 sentences in when my father said, "Theo, did you look into housing yet? Because Chicago rents are not what they were. Boston is going to be a different animal entirely." I stopped talking. I finished my salmon. After dinner, in the parking lot, Theo caught up with me before I got to my car. He'd had 2 glasses of wine and his tie was loosened and he looked like a kid, which he was, and I felt a rush of uncomplicated love for him that had nothing to do with any of the rest of it. "Hey," he said, "I just want to say, I know tonight's was kind of." He made a vague gesture with his hand. "It was your night," I said. "It was a good dinner, Audra." He looked at me directly. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "You're a federal judge. You're a federal judge. And he asked you if you were still doing courthouse stuff. He's proud of you," I said. "Let him be proud of you." Theo shook his head. He looked at the pavement. "I found out last week," he said quietly. "One of my professors at undergrad, she knew. She mentioned you in class, like just in passing, something about a ruling you wrote. I Googled it after." He looked up. "Audra, I read your opinion. The one on the securities fraud case. It got cited in a Second Circuit decision." I looked at him. "You Googled me. I mean, I knew you were a judge, but I hadn't actually." He shook his head again, frustrated with himself. "I'm sorry, I should have looked. I should have known." I put my hand on his arm. "Go to Harvard," I said. "Do the moot court. It actually is where the networking happens." He laughed a little helplessly. I got in my car. I did not allow myself to cry on the drive home. I was very good at not doing things. The Illinois State Bar Association's annual gala is held every October at the Marriott Magnificent Mile, the kind of event where circuit court judges and senior partners mill around with small plates of shrimp and make carefully worded small talk about nothing. I had been attending for years in my capacity first as an AUSA, and then for the past year as a sitting federal judge. I gave a short address at the luncheon the previous spring. I had 300 contacts in this building on any given October evening. My father called me the week before the gala to tell me he was coming to Chicago. He and my mother were driving up for a long weekend. My mother wanted to see the fall leaves in Lincoln Park, and my father wanted to go to the Air and Water Show, which had already happened in August, but nobody told him. I said I would make dinner reservations. I did not mention the gala because I did not want to make a thing of it, and because I knew exactly how it would go if I brought them. My mother found the invitation on my counter on Saturday morning while I was making coffee. "What's this?" she asked, holding it up. It was heavy cardstock, cream-colored, with the Bar Association seal embossed in gold. "The Honorable Audra Weston is cordially invited," and so on. My mother read it with the quiet, concentrated attention she gave to things she considered important. "This is tonight," she said. I know. Are you going? I'm supposed to, I said. It's fine. You guys can do your own thing. I'll be back by 10. My mother set the invitation down carefully on the counter, straightening it so it was parallel to the edge. We'd like to come, she said. From the living room, my father's voice, come where? What are we doing? Audra has an event tonight, my mother said, still looking at me. Her voice had something in it I couldn't quite read. A formal gala for lawyers and judges. A pause, then, oh, well, I don't have anything to wear to a thing like that. You have your good blazer, my mother said. I opened my mouth to say it was fine, not to worry. I'd just go alone the way I always had. But my mother was already walking toward the living room, and something in how she moved stopped me from saying anything. I want to tell you what happened at the gala, but first I need to tell you about Judge Harriet Okafor, because she is important. Harriet Okafor is a 7th Circuit judge. She has been on the bench for 22 years. She is 71 years old, 5 feet 2 inches tall, and when she walks into a room, actual conversations stop. I don't mean people notice her. I mean conversations stop. I have seen it happen. She has that particular quality that some people develop after decades of authority. A kind of gravitational pull that has nothing to do with volume and everything to do with weight. Harriet Okafor had been my mentor for 6 years. She recruited me into the federal system when I was an AUSA. She wrote the letter that accompanied my nomination. She called me the morning of my confirmation to say, "Don't trip on the robe. It's longer than you think." She was the first person I told when the Cherry Garcia parking lot happened, and she had listened without saying anything, except, at the end, "Good, you needed that." She knew my family situation, in the way mentors know things, through years of small disclosures and careful listening. She had never met my father. That changed at 7:42 on an October Saturday at the Marriott Magnificent Mile. I had been introducing my parents around carefully. Strategic geography, I called it in my head. I took them to the quieter end of the room, near the bar where the newer associates clustered and the conversation stayed light. I got my mother a glass of Chardonnay and my father a scotch and soda, and I was just beginning to think this was manageable, that we could do this, get through this, when I looked up and saw Harriet Okafor cutting directly toward us across the room. She moved like someone who had places to be. She always did. "Audra," she said, and her voice carried. People nearby turned, not dramatically, but they did. "I've been looking for you. I want to introduce you to someone from the nominating committee before he gets cornered by the trademark people." "Of course," I said. Then, because I had no other option, "Judge Okafor, these are my parents." Harriet turned to look at them with the full, unhurried attention she gave to everything. She shook my mother's hand first. "It's a pleasure," she said, and she meant it. Then she turned to my father. My father was doing the thing he did in unfamiliar rooms, shoulders slightly forward, hands in his pockets, scanning for a foothold. He was a man who had spent 40 years being the most knowledgeable person in whatever room he was in. A contractor who could read a blueprint faster than most architects, who had built a successful business from nothing, who was genuinely, formidably competent at the things he knew. Rooms like this one were not the things he knew. I could see him recalibrating. "You must be very proud," Harriet said to him pleasantly. My father straightened slightly. "Of Theo? Oh, absolutely. Harvard Law starting in January." Harriet's expression didn't change, but there was a pause, a very small one. She looked at him, then at me, then back at him. "I meant Audra," she said. "Oh," my father cleared his throat. Sure. "Your daughter," Harriet said, with the patience of someone who had 30 years of practice in courtrooms, wrote an opinion last spring that the 7th Circuit has already cited twice in subsequent rulings. She's 34 years old. That is not a common thing." She paused again. "It is actually quite an uncommon thing." My father said nothing. He looked at me. I looked at the middle distance. "She also," Harriet continued, something shifting very slightly in her voice, Argued 4 cases before me when she was in AUSA and won 3 of them. The one she lost was a bad draw on the jury and a worse one on the facts. She still out-argued opposing counsel by a margin that made me wish I could give a judgment for effort. Harriet picked up a glass of water from a passing tray. I'm not in the habit of saying things I don't mean, so I'll say this once. I have been on the federal bench for 22 years, and your daughter is one of the finest legal minds I have encountered in that time. She took a sip of water. Just so you know. The room kept going around us. Glasses clinked. Someone laughed loudly near the entrance. My father stood very still. It was lovely to meet you, Harriet said to my mother, who looked like she was trying not to cry. Enjoy the evening. She turned to me. Nominating committee, 10 minutes. Don't let him get to the open bar first. And then she was gone, absorbed back into the room, stopping to say something to a partner from Sidley Austin. Moving on. I did not look at my father. My mother found my hand and squeezed it, once hard, and let go. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had heard in years. We ended up at a diner on Wabash at 11 o'clock, because that is what our family did with difficult evenings. We had always been diner people, which I had always considered our one truly functional trait. The place was called Midge's. It had been there since 1974, and the pie was genuinely excellent. We slid into a corner booth under fluorescent lights, my parents across from me, and a waitress named Dot brought coffee without being asked. My father wrapped both hands around his mug. He looked at it the way he looked at blueprints, like he was trying to find the structural problem. You should have told me, he said finally. Not accusatory, just quiet. You never asked, I said. I wasn't being cruel. It was just the truth. He absorbed that. I read the articles, my mother said softly. She was looking at her coffee, too. After your confirmation, there were a couple of pieces in the Tribune. I kept them. I have them in the drawer in the kitchen at home, the one with the takeout menus and the thumbtacks. I looked at her mom. She looked up. Her eyes were red at the rims. I didn't know how to bring them up, she said. Every time you call, your father is right there, and I didn't. She stopped. I should have found a way. My father set down his mug. He had large hands, contractor's hands, with a faint scar across the right palm from a table saw accident in 1997 that I knew the story of because he had told it at every Thanksgiving for 20 years. I had always found those hands reassuring as a child, something sturdy and honest about them. I built things my whole life, he said. I framed houses. I poured concrete. I put up the walls of half the buildings in the county where you grew up. And I never went to college, and I never had a title, and I never. He stopped, started again. And then you came along, and then later Theo. And I thought if I pushed the right things, I could. He shook his head. Theo was easier to understand. Law school, argument, those are things I could see. Judging is just argument that stops, I said. Something flickered in his face. What Harriet said, he started. Judge Okafor. He accepted that, what she said, about your opinion. The one the circuit cited. He looked at me. I don't know what that means exactly, but I know it sounded like. He pressed his lips together. I know what it sounded like. Dot came back with the pie. Coconut cream for my mother, who always ordered coconut cream and never finished it. Cherry for my father, because he was predictable in the ways I had always found most lovable about him. Apple for me. Nobody moved to eat. I don't need you to understand federal procedure, I said, looking at my father. I really don't. I have clerks for that. I have colleagues. I pushed my fork gently through the crust. I just needed you to show up sometimes. He flinched, actually flinched, which was something I had never seen my father do. The confirmation, I said, not to wound him, just because it was the thing. You sent a card. The silence that followed was different from the one at the gala. That one had been about shock. This one was about weight, about the specific gravity of understanding what you've done and not being able to undo it. He stopped. I thought it was like a promotion. I thought I'd congratulate you and then we'd all move on. I didn't understand. He picked up his fork and put it down again. I didn't understand what it was. It's a lifetime appointment, I said. I'll be a judge until I decide to retire. No one can remove me except Congress. He stared at me. Dad. I waited until he looked up. I know you built things your whole life. I know you were good at it. I know what it cost you to start that business from nothing. And I know you did it for us, for me and Theo, and I have never once taken that for granted. I leaned forward slightly. I built something too. It just doesn't have walls. My father made a sound that wasn't quite a word. His eyes filled, which I had seen twice in my life, once when our dog died when I was 9, and once apparently when Theo got into Harvard. He blinked hard. He picked up his coffee mug and put it to his mouth and held it there without drinking. My mother reached over and covered his hand with hers. She didn't say anything. She had the economy of a woman who had spent decades saying things with silence. I'm sorry, my father said, into the mug. The words were muffled and imprecise and entirely genuine. I'm sorry I didn't. I should have. He set the mug down. He looked at me with the kind of directness he usually reserved for men he respected. I'm sorry I didn't see it. I picked up my fork. I took a bite of the apple pie. It was warm and sweet and tasted like every diner we had ever sat in. Every uncomfortable family moment eventually metabolized into something ordinary and okay. The pie is good, I said. My father let out a breath. He picked up his fork and cut a piece of the cherry. He chewed slowly, looking at the table. Then he looked up at me. It's really good, he said. My mother laughed. One of those unexpected laughs that breaks through when you've been holding something too long. She covered her mouth with her hand. My father looked startled. Then something in his face gave, and he laughed too, a short, rusty sound, like a door that hadn't been opened in a while. I let myself smile. We sat there in Midge's diner on Wabash Avenue at 11:30 at night, eating pie under fluorescent lights, and it wasn't fixed, not really. Not in the way you'd write in a movie, but something had shifted. Something real and irreversible, like a door swinging open onto a room that had always been there. 2 weeks later, I was in chambers reviewing briefs when my clerk knocked and said I had a call on the main line, no affiliation given. I picked up. This is Judge Weston, I said. A pause. Then, my father's voice slightly formal the way he was when he left voicemails. It's Dad. I know, I said. Hi. Another pause. I Googled the opinion, he said, the securities one. I read the whole thing. Well, a short breath. I read most of it. I had to look up about 30 words, but I read it. I said nothing, waiting. I don't understand all of it, he said, but I understood the part at the end, where you talk about what the law is for. He stopped. That part I understood. I looked at the briefs on my desk. Outside my window, Michigan Avenue was doing what it always did in October, turning gray and purposeful, the lake throwing cold light across the buildings. Come to Chicago at Christmas, I said. Both of you. Bring Theo if he wants to come before he leaves for Boston. I'll make reservations somewhere actually good. Definitely, he said. Definitely not Dovetail. Okay, he said. A pause. Okay, Audra. Something about the way he said my name. I had not heard him say it like that before. Like it meant something specific. Like it was a real place he was finally arriving at after a long drive. I set down the brief I had been holding and looked at the middle distance, at nothing, at the gray October light coming through the window. I'll see you at Christmas, Dad, I said.